I think we can start because online
people is
online.
online.
We can start. Thank you.
We shall speak in English because this first session is international session. So I have the honor to introduce you, Professor Luigi Tesio. He will deliver us the work, A New Venus Mechanical Inflammatory Model. Please proceed.
The most common visiting conditions across the whole world. But the fact that we still call it back pain means that we have not clear ideas on the mechanism generating of the symptom. We still use a descriptive diagnostics. So I propose this new pathogenetic that we tries to integrate different hypotheses that were put forward during the latest decades, but all disconnected with each other. The dominant model is a simple condition, namely there should be some compression within the spinal canal on the many nervous endings, which are located there. It's not only the roots, the ganglion, and many other nerve endings causing pain. The mechanical compression model was born in practice in 1937.
It's okay. On the screen, on the main screen.
Okay. It's delayed, that's why. When Mr. Barr described the entity which we now call discariation. Of course, this protrusion, these prolapses can be considered synonyms in this respect. Well, he recognized that this condition could compress the spinal cord or the roots. And from then on, the compressive model became the dominant one. In 1954, Dutch neurosurgeon Verbiest described very well the so-called spinal stenosis syndrome, which is also, of course, mechanical compression form, which can aggravate a lumbar disc condition or create pain in itself. Although spinal stenosis usually causes more spinal claudication than pain. But anyhow, the compressive model became the standard interpretation of back pain syndromes. The second model I am proposing to you is a neglected one, but I think it is the core of my present model, which is the role. Let me go back one slide. Sorry. Okay. Let me go back for one moment. The Venus idea actually was proposed in the 80s by a group of British rheumatologists. Okay, the Venus idea was proposed in the 80s by a group of British rheumatologists who observed that we have phlebitis in the urines. This phlebitis can be fostered by the fibrinolytic deficit, which is very common in case of sedentary lifestyle and smoking habits. They demonstrated that the epidural fat, meaning chronic back pain syndromes, resembles the fat you can find under the skin in lower limbs from phlebitis. So this was an entirely disconnected line of research, which was not related to the compressive model. But it's very interesting to rescue because the idea that veins can create back pain rests on three interesting pillars. Of course, the phlebitis can evolve into fibrosis, especially if you have a fibrinolytic deficit. These are the three pillars of the idea that the epidural veins can be a relevant cause of back pain. First, the anatomy of the epidural and radicular veins. Second, the fact that visceral conditions, we shall see them in a few slides, can cause back pain through venous congestion at the epidural space. And venous congestion can be responsible for common back pain, even without resorting to other diseases of internal organs. Well, the anatomy of the epidural veins is very peculiar. It was very well demonstrated by the American surgeon Oscar Watson in 1940. This is his original drawing. It's a fantastic drawing, I guess. And he demonstrated that the epidural veins make up an entire venous system together with the cava, the portal, and the pulmonary system. They drain blood from the pelvis. The veins are connected to the intracranial veins. They run along the whole spinal cord, and they can work as a bypass between the portal, the cava, and the pulmonary system. And they drain, of course, into the right atrium. Interesting enough is the fact that these veins have no valves, so they can be dilated very easily if there is an increase of the central venous pressure, for instance, in heart failure, or in case of local pressure within the spine. His findings were demonstrated brilliantly in the later decades. By the way, another interesting point is that Watson was not interested in back pain. He was interested in the spread of metastasis. And he asked himself, for instance, why prostate cancer does not spread to the liver, but first to vertebra, skull, or the lungs. And he didn't relate this discovery to back pain, but his findings were anyway confirmed very well by anatomic studies. This is a study of the 90s, a very elegant study. You see the structure of the epidural venous plexus, which run inside the spinal canal, and is a sort of sheath, vascular sheath in the epidural fat. And it's exactly the same as it was described by Watson. And you see in the anatomical enlargement on the right that behind each disc, there is a large network of epidural veins. You see that those black spots are networks of veins just in front of the disc, on the posterior side of the disc. So quite interesting, isn't it? When you see a home icon, this means probably this is a take-home message. The second point is that many visceral conditions can create back pain through venous engorgement. On the left, you see classic venous engorgement in case of liver cirrhosis. On the right, you see the angiographic image of the same situation, and you see with the X the enlargement of the epidural plexus. Of course, there is an enlargement also of the intercostal veins, for instance. But what is interesting is that back pain is related to a dilation of the venous plexus. There has been many other observations of the association between back pain and visceral conditions. For instance, recumbence, bed rest. Many people suffer from back pain at night, not during movement. And pain is alleviated by walking, for instance. Or they wake up and they feel a lot of pain, then they start moving and then they feel better. This seems paradoxical because, moving implies loading the spine. But during recumbence, during bed rest, there is no muscular pump, and so the veins are dilated. Pathologic conditions are very common. For instance, restless legs syndrome has been considered a form of ischemia of the cauda, especially in case of spinal stenosis, due to enlargement of the vein. So I believe that it is not a form of dystonia, as neurologists claim, but it is really a form of venous ischemia of the cauda. Other conditions, again, yes, there are many. For instance, pregnancy. Pregnancy is associated with back pain, which is still unexplained, unless you consider that there is an enormous increase of the venous return during pregnancy, during the say, 4 to 6 months of pregnancy, there is a six-fold increase of the venous return to the caval system, and so you can imagine that there is a shunt towards the epidural plexus, and again, there is, for instance, heart failure. Heart failure can be heralded with night backache much before night dyspnea appears. And this is especially true for patients with spinal stenosis. And again, caval thrombosis, liver thrombosis, the so-called Chiari syndrome, and the curious but not exceptional nutcracker syndrome. Nutcracker syndrome is due to the compression of the left renal vein, the left kidney vein, between the aorta and the superior mesenteric artery, so that you have a compression of the left renal vein. And the venous blood finds other ways to reach the right artery, also through the epidural plexus. In all of these publications, there is clear evidence that back pain is associated to dilation of the epidural veins. They're very elegant, these papers. But they are all disconnected. Nobody put together this kind of observations. Probably I was the first to hypothesize that common back pain also can be caused by venous dilation without resorting to cirrhosis, heart failure, and so on. So why not thinking that back pain without other diseases can be caused by venous engorgement? This hypothesis I put it forward in 1991. Of course, it had no luck, in the medical literature. It was a sort of isolated observation. But there has been many other confirmations through MRI, because now it's quite easy to MRI to demonstrate that there is a venous engorgement, although it's very rare that people, for instance, radiologists do not describe venous dilation. I can see it very clearly. I can show you many instances of conventional MRI in which there is a venous dilation, which is not described by the radiologist. Radiologists are attracted by dyskinesia, of course. And here, for instance, you see MRIs. It's like hemorrhoids, no? Which gave classic sciatic pain. This is a wonderful paper showing a case with severe intractable low back pain, and you see how much dilated are the venous plexus and surrounding venous plexus, surrounding the parts on the one. On the right, you see what happens when the patient makes a Valsalva maneuver, such as coughing, sneezing, forced expiration. You see how the dilation of the vein spreads across the entire lumbar spine, together with pain. So there is a clear association between enlargement of the epidural veins and pain. On the right side, you see another paper showing again a rise, a sort of hemorrhoid in the spine, mimicking a cyst, but found to be barracks at the operation. So there are converging evidence that the venous engorgement can be a strong contributor to back pain syndromes. But all of these observations were completely disconnected. Nobody put together this kind of observation. At this point, I must show you a so-called corollary. And we must explain why some people feel better in extension. This is not the rule. Usually people like staying flexed because flexion enlarges the spinal canal. During flexion, the spinal canal is enlarged because the facets become farther from each other, and because the disc protrudes, is moved anteriorly. During extension, the opposite occurs. The area of the spinal canal can be decreased by more than 20%, even in healthy people, and the disc protrudes posteriorly. So extension is not that good for back pain, except in these cases. Usually these cases are those with the classic witch's blow, an acute pain, which can subside, say, in a few days. Usually it responds very well to steroids, particular dexamethasone, and can revert to a flexor syndrome after the acute phase subsided. So why you prefer a position decreasing the size of the canal? This is because we forgot that the neural sac, it's a form of meningeal pain. Meninges, the neural sac can be compressed directly or can be inflamed through the mediation of local fibers. And the neural sac is elongated when you flex. There are neurologic signs called Kernig, Brudzinski, even the Lasek sign is a meningeal sign. You stretch the neural sac. So meningeal pain prevails on any other form of pain. And so you see that when you flex, you elongate the whole neural sac. And during extension, the neural sac is in slack condition. So no mystery for that. Provided you accept that this is a form of meningeal pain, it's not a nociceptive pain, a conventional nociceptive pain. And so this contradiction is easily explained. Well, this is the model. The model is quite simple. You have a compression arm of the model, compression on any kinds of neural endings in the canal. We can discuss about which are these endings, but this is not the point of interest today. On the right side, you see the congestion arm. The point is that compression and congestion enhance each other. So there is a vicious circle between congestion and compression. Congestion may act also through ischemia, through inflammation. It's classic tonsillitis, and fibrosis, mostly if you have a fibrinolytic deficit, genetically or because of smoking habits, sedentary lifestyle, and whatever. So the model is quite simple, but must consider the absolute interaction between a compression and a vascular mechanism. Otherwise, you can't explain many observations. I listed a series of observations which cannot be explained through the compressive model alone. For instance, why some people feel pain in flexion and some in extension. This was explained. Why some people find relief from exercise and not from rest, which is quite a paradox. But if you think to the venous pump, it's quite obvious. And other observations like that. For instance, pain in pregnancy, it's unexplained unless you will see the vegetation and so on. There are several of these contradictory findings which are very well explained by this model. Let me see if it shows some work distribution and can be. Well, now the time course, which is very capricious, sometimes it's chronic, sometimes it's progressing towards improvement or towards worsening. Sometimes you have a burst of back pain and then nothing for 1 or 2 years and then another burst and so on. To explain these findings, you must consider the possibility that there is a chronic phlebitis and also the spontaneous recovery is no longer a mystery because any kind of phlebitis can spontaneously recover. Also, another unexplained finding is the disconnection between images and severity of patients. We all know that huge disc herniations can be fully asymptomatic and mild disc protrusion can create pain, but the problem is that this protrusion is not the only thing in town. So if you accept that there are an interaction between compressive and vascular mechanism, then everything becomes explainable. So you must think to your patients and think if I am convincing you or not. Because if you don't classify back pain, you cannot find a rational treatment. You cannot customize treatments. So you can be holistic and doing the same thing to people, a lot of things together to the same people and things like that. You don't have a clear indication how to act. Now, after this, we can start with an idea of treatment. I will present only 3 physiotherapy treatments that I consider most consistent with this. Of course, there are thousands of treatments for back pain. I think the main mistake is considering pain a disease itself rather than a symptom, because in the case of back pain, there are causes. If we don't find the cause of that, we think that pain becomes a sort of psychological problem, something chronically established in your mind and so on. But there are no mysteries. So the 3, now the slides are coming, I guess. The three treatments are flexors exercise, water exercise, and the outlet traction treatment, which I renamed about the active lung traction, which is my preference. The slides will help us when they can, but I can talk in while. Flexor exercises were formalized by Paul Williams in 1937. Now there are plenty of exercises causing flexion of the spine. The rationale the rationale is widening spinal canal. But the long-term effect can sometimes explained by decongestment of the veins. Otherwise, you can be 1 hour of treatment, but then you should go back to the basal condition. So it acts mostly on the compression arm, but it causes benefits also on the venous arm. Water exercise is very, this is okay. So this is, of course, the therapeutic model. You must provide canal widening and decongestion, possibly both together. And let's talk about water exercise, which is of interest. You know that the immersion in thermoneutral water, say 34, something that's more or less, causes a squeezing of the venous system, so that into the atrium in a few minutes, about 100 milliliters come when water reaches their sea level. That is the classic drawing in the original Williams paper. And this means that you decongest the veins. This is well known. You have dilation of the veins in the lower limbs for even water efficient. Of course, there are other mechanisms. There is diabetes insipidus physiological. You have a dilution of the blood because from the interstitial spaces, water comes into the veins and so on. But what is interesting to see is that you have a decompression within the spinal canal due to the disengorgement of the veins. Of course, you can add flexor exercises and whatever, so that you can act in both arms. What is interesting with the autotraction method is that it also acts on both arms. Okay, the autotraction was invented in 1974 by the Swedish physician Gert Lin. It was improved in 1984 by Herb Pupil and Thatcher. This was the original and multi-table, two sections divided transversally. Sections can be tilted and rotated through an electric motor. And during the movement of the table, the patient pulls himself with the upper limbs. I never use in practice the prone position, like in the original method. I simplified very much the method, and which is now traction. And here is how it appears. Now you can download freely the manual with the explanation. It's very, very simple. It's very simple. How it works? It works with simple traction efforts. The patient pulls himself for 5-6 seconds. The first point is find the least painful position. Then exert pulling efforts, 5-6 seconds. And then during the efforts, between subsequent efforts, then you move the patient towards the painful positions. But the painful positions become free from pain, actually. So that's it. The program is very simple, 3 sessions in a week. If the patient feels better, then 3 to 5 more sessions, and that's finished. If you don't have good results, then you stop. It's amazingly simple. A physiotherapist can learn the method in stay for 3 days and treating some 10-15 patients under supervision. Very simple. Not a form of plastic traction. Simple. Pain decreases by 1,600%. It's 75% of chronic low back pain patients, even with lumbar disc herniation, spinal stenosis, sequelae from previous surgery, and so on, almost no side effects. And the mechanism. I think the main mechanism is muscular pump and decongestion of the veins, and possibly remodeling of the disc nerve impedance. It's astonishingly simple and effective, but it was not successful spreading. But there are many papers spreading this thing, but it was not very accepted. And Scandinavia is very cold. There are reasons for that, which are both scientific and not commercial. You cannot make much money without traction. You can act, of course, both on the compression and the vascular arms. What about other treatments? Go back. Yes. Well, the research agenda is finding direct demonstration that you have a decongestion of the epidural veins because of the treatment. I was never able to convince neuroradiologists to run this simple clinical trials, treating patients and seeing what happens to the neurology. They're not interested, they think, oh, if they go, we don't have the MRI sequences suitable for that. Apparently, nobody is interested. I tried several times with several neurologists. Nobody's interested. The second point is the dominant paradigm is a compressive one, and autofraction compressed this. But it's not the pain, not the point. It's not the point because we need muscular pump at the paravertebral level, fostered by the positioning of the patient that facilitates the venous drainage localized. And the third is that there are many methods. And maybe it's also not so much rewarding. So this is the whole idea that the research agenda includes also the interaction between these three approaches, flexural exercises, water, autotraction, which is first, which is second, why not using all of them simultaneously, and also the interaction with drugs. Drugs is an interesting point because all drugs, I find new indications. And I'm thinking to heparinoids and flavonoids, the same use for use insufficiency. So this is the research agenda, I guess, and I hope that this intervention stimulated your criticism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Tesio. Since we are a little bit running out of time, I shall invite, it's a great honor for us to hear online directly Professor Francesca Gimigliano, who wishes to deliver her presentation directly online. Do you hear us, Professor?
Just a minute, because it's not online, so I don't have this possibility. Just a minute to check again. No, so we'll move to the
Probably she has been waiting, so she's not online. We
Hello
have
to all the Romanian colleagues and friends that are listening to this international session, and thanks again for the invitation to be part of the Congress. It's always a pleasure, even at distance, to be in contact with you. This is quite an exciting moment in rehabilitation, as in May this year, it has been approved by the WHO during the World Health Assembly, an historic resolution on strengthening rehabilitation in the health systems. This is an historic moment because it is the first time that the WHO approves a resolution regarding rehabilitation. And now let's go into the details of the beautiful text of the resolution. One of the premises is that we need to consider that the need for rehabilitation is increasing, in part due to the epidemiological shift from communicable to non-communicable diseases. Also, we need to take into account the consequences from COVID-19, and to consider the need for rehabilitation is increasing also for the global demographic shift towards rapid population aging, accompanied by a rise in physical and mental health challenges, injuries, and in particular road traffic accidents and comorbidities. In December 2020, it was published the first study to produce a global estimate of the need for rehabilitation services. And it has been calculated that 1 in 3 people today are estimated to be living with a health condition that would benefit from rehabilitation. That is 2.4 billion people. This is a recent update of the COVID-19 global situation. We all know the consequences of COVID-19 that could lead to the need of rehabilitation. The slide shows how the lengthening of lifespan brings to an increase in chronic degenerative diseases and an increase in concomitant diseases, bringing to the so-called frailty syndrome. We know that in 2050, more than 1 in 5 people will be 60 years or older, and 80% of older people will be living in low and middle income countries. Other important premises are that rehabilitation needs are largely unmet globally, that the current level of rehabilitation-related workforce is insufficient in number and quality to serve the needs of the population, and that education and training of health professionals is essential to guarantee adequate professional skills and competencies in their different roles and functions to provide safe, quality, accessible, and inclusive health rehabilitation services. We know, unfortunately, that the density of skilled rehabilitation practitioners is less than 10 per 1 million population in many low and middle income countries. The WHO has published in the last years the rehabilitation competency framework to help countries in preparing educational programs for the different professionals in the rehabilitation workforce. Other important premises are the recognition that rehabilitation requires more attention by policymakers, and that the WHO is deeply concerned that most countries, especially developing countries, are not sufficiently equipped to respond to the sudden increase in rehabilitation needs, like it was created during the health emergency of COVID-19. It is a fact that rehabilitation health services has been the most commonly disrupted service during COVID-19, which is absurd if you think that the rehabilitation needs of the population during COVID-19 was increased. The WHO has also published the minimum technical standards and recommendation for rehabilitation in emergencies. This is a very important document. In other premises, has been written to emphasize that rehabilitation services are key to the achievement of sustainable developmental goals. In particular, number 3, that is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages, as well as an essential part of achieving target 3.8, that is universal health coverage, access to quality essential healthcare services. A few years ago, the WHO has published a guide for action, which is a 4-phase process to describe how rehabilitation can be integrated in the health systems. And another important document that has been produced by the WHO, this time in collaboration with Cochrane Rehabilitation, is the package of interventions for rehabilitation for several health conditions. In the resolution, it is reaffirmed also that rehabilitation services contribute to the enjoyment of human rights, such as the right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, including sexual and reproductive health, the right to work, the right to education, among the others, and that the state's obligation and commitments in this regard are consistent with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. We know that rehabilitation has been defined by the WHO as a set of interventions designed to optimize functioning and reduce disability in individuals without conditions in interaction with the environment. And that between the complete functioning and the complete disability, there are a lot of different possibilities. Other important premises of the resolution are the Declaration of Astana, that emphasizes the fact that rehabilitation is an essential element of universal health coverage, an essential health service for primary health care, and some rehabilitation-related resolution approved in the previous World Health Assembly, like the Global Strategy and Action Plan on Aging and Health, or the resolution on improving access to assistive technology, or to strengthen the WHO preparedness and response to health emergency, or the one saying regarding the highest attainable standard of health for persons with disabilities. And another premises was to recall the political declaration of the high-level meeting on universal health coverage, including the commitment to increase access to health services for all persons with disabilities, remove physical, attitudinal, social, structural, and financial barriers. The text of the resolution also underlines that persons in marginalized or vulnerable situations, like persons with disability, often lack access to affordable, quality, and appropriate rehabilitation services and assistive technology. The concern about the affordability of accessing rehabilitation services, and it has been reaffirmed that universal health coverage implies that all people have access without discrimination to nationally determined sets of needed treatment, promotive, preventive, rehabilitative, and palliative essential health services. This is a synthesis of the International Conference on Primary Health Care in Alma-Ata in 1978, where health has been declared as a fundamental human right, and where the rehabilitative strategy has been addressed as essential to reach health. And this is the text regarding rehabilitation that has been adopted by the General Health Assembly in December 2019. That rehabilitation has to be part of universal health coverage and should be incorporated into the package of essential services. This is to remind the Declaration of Astana, in which rehabilitation services are declared as important as promotive, preventive, curative, and palliative, and that must be accessible to all. Other important premises in the resolution are those related to the International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health. We all know how important is to measure functioning in the population to actually understand the need for rehabilitation and how functioning should be the third indicator, health indicator, along with the mortality and morbidity. Furthermore, it is underlined the importance of a human-centered, goal-oriented, and holistic approach in rehabilitation. And as you know, internationally, we are promoting the individual rehabilitation project that puts the patient at the center of the rehabilitation interventions. Very important premises are the recognition that the provision of timely care for the acutely ill or injured prevents millions of deaths and long-term disabilities. The concern that lack of access to rehabilitation may expose persons with rehabilitation needs to higher risks of marginalization, and the concern that the fragmentation of rehabilitation governance in different countries and the lack of integration of rehabilitation into health systems and services and could prevent the continuum of care. Another interesting premises is the concern about the lack of awareness among healthcare providers of the relevance of rehabilitation. While there is appreciation of the efforts made by the member states, WHO Secretariat, and international partners, including the ISPRM in recent years, to strengthen rehabilitation in health systems, and appreciation about the WHO's initiative Rehabilitation 2030, a call for action. Rehabilitation 2030 call for action was launched in February 2017, thanks to the WHO Secretariat led by Alarco Siesa. And in that occasion, over 200 rehabilitation experts from 46 countries gathered together to draw attention to the increasing needs for rehabilitation, to highlight the role of rehabilitation in achieving the Sustainable Developmental Goals, and to call for coordinated and concerted global action towards strengthening rehabilitation in health systems. As you can read in the resolution urges member states to raise awareness and build national commitment for rehabilitation, including for assistive technology, and strengthen planning for rehabilitation, including its integration within national health plans. To incorporate appropriate ways to strengthen financing mechanisms for rehabilitation services, to expand rehabilitation to all levels of health, from primary to tertiary health care, and to ensure the integrated and coordinated provision of high quality, affordable, accessible, gender sensitive, and appropriate and evidence-based interventions for rehabilitation along the continuum of care.
No, sir. Thank you.
Acum, la mine și punem cu asta.
O să-l invităm mai departe pe domnul profesor Gelu Onose pentru a face următoarea prezentare din cadrul programului.
We are drastically running out of time, so I will cut severely my presentation. It's about systematization of neurofunctional deficits assessment instruments, this time in spinal cord, in spinal muscle atrophy, including through the ICF framing. Here, I acknowledge my colleagues that in different periods have brought contributions to the already achieved pentalogy, as we made such a systematization in traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, stroke, cerebral palsy, and multiple sclerosis. And now we approach the spinal muscle atrophy. And although the main target is to systematize the main assessment scales in spinal muscle atrophy, I have realized that, in fact, this is more or less a pretext. Of course, we have done our job. We have identified through the PRISMA method 11 such scales, and more specific 5 of them. Practically, they are manifold useful scales, and we have framed them also, let's say, for our contribution from aside the framing through the ICF. And I am glad that Professor Gimigliano presented the key concepts of the ICF, but also a contribution of ours in systematizing in synthetic kinds of assessment scales with more global focus, more global functional address and more focused functional address. And there are 8 of them of this kind with more global functional address, and 2 of them with more focused functional address. But all of this becomes a pretext, because what I want to importantly present is what happens with the spinal muscle atrophy, because in neurorehabilitation we are very important because we approach a pathology which unfortunately the neurologists haven't discovered yet a medicine able to cure. So in neurology, we don't have, at least for adults, cure. Well, we are now facing a revolutionary situation, because in spinal muscle atrophy, we reached now the possibility to merge successfully prevention and cure, and we can speak loud about cure. This is fantastic. Spinal muscle atrophy is an extremely invalidating genetic hereditary disease with recessive autosomal transmission that affects motor neurons in the anterior medullary horn and, of course, in the brainstem. And this is why they have severely deposturing, they have a severe weight loss, muscle weakness. They do not survive. You will see they have also, because of the cranial nerves, deficits of swallowing and breathing, possibly also cardiac troubles, and they affect also their face expression, the tongue, the deglutition, and the swallowing. But poor, these kids are specifically very clever. They do not have intellectual or learning problems. The incidence is fortunately one in around 10,000 live births in all the European countries, and is similar to the cystic fibrosis and Duchenne muscular atrophy. And it's because a genetic disease caused by homozygous deletion mutation of the gene of survival of motor neuron 1 and respectively 2. And the standards of care guidelines of approaching this spinal muscle atrophy entails 8 domains, starting with diagnosis and genetics. This is the one we will approach. And we have practically 5 types: the 0-1 intrauterine, practic death at few weeks of life; infant Wernicke Hoffman appears less than 5 months of life, and the death occurs in less than 2 years. Then we have the survivors, the intermediate, which appears between 6 months and 18 months, the Dubovitz type. They survive to the adulthood, but with severe disability. They reach at best sitting position, but never walk. Then we have the juvenile, more than 18 months onset Kugelberg-Verlander with proximal muscle weakness. They achieved walking, but they can lose it. And the lifespan is not significantly modified. And the type 4, because actually the fifth one is appearing in adulthood at more than 30 years, and it results in a moderate deficit motor and doesn't affect the lifespan. Well, here we have from functional point of view, kids, non-sitters, sitters, and workers. And like I said, it is one of the most active and successful domain of research in neurology because, look here, for kids type 1, type 2, you see the tongue, type 3. Of course, we do not have type 4 because these are adults and they do not have severe deficiency. And here you see the National Clinical Center for Neuropsychomotor Rehabilitation in Children, which is a top institution in Romania, working, I dare say, all the time, not only at European standards, I should say over the European standards. It is a wonderful unit. And there are our country, in which we don't could say that we have a very abundant financiation of the health system. Yet, for the rare disease, there is a national program that provides treatments for these kids. And we have the supply of the SMN1 gene, the onasemnogene abeparvovec, which one perfusion, it's, you hear well, 2 million euros. And our state gives it once. The great victory is that such a perfusion usually is enough for life, or at least for 7 years. And it can be alternatively action on SMN2, the nursinelsen, which is more demanding because it is by intrathecal infusion, or risdiplam, which is orally. Optimally is to give to the kid a pentalogy, these three, and of course olesoxim, which is neuroprotection to the myoneural junction, providing supplying more neurotransmitters, and also because we do not know if we make the genomolecular diagnosis, advanced diagnosis that makes before birth and pre-symptomatic the kid. So we can give all these three treatments plus reldemcitab because we don't know whether which is prevalent SMN1 or 2, the deficit. So he or she might have also cardiac. So it's better to give the troponin activator too. And the Scholar Rock monoclonal antibody, which is a myostatin inhibitor, and that reinforce the combat of muscle weakness. So if somebody, our state gives one of the treatment, but who can afford all the other four, practically we reach a revolutionary state. We can keep from disease. This is an outstanding nowadays example of merging gen molecular advanced diagnosis with prevention and effective cure. And our center, they're hardly mine because I don't work there, but I'm conducting a PhD thesis there. They started an ongoing screening study, and now we see the results of the frequency of the three type of spinal muscle atrophy. And in pre-symptomatic, practically the kids with genetic deficiency don't even pass through the disease. They are cured before being sick. This is absolutely fantastic. And of course, I will make short my presentation. It has the prisma diagram, the framing through the ICF concept, the framing through our contribution, global functional address or more focused functional address. And here we have the 11 scales. 5 of them are more specific, but also the 6-minute walking test and the time up and go are used. And here we have, including for the adult form at 60 years, some of the assessment tools. And of course, I will not bother you to describe all this. Most of them are body activities, body structure and function activities and participation targeting. And I shall end abruptly my presentation because we are running of time, telling that fortunately all this endeavor of ours regarding this framing of the rather many assessment scales regarding spinal muscular atrophy, which became curable, hopefully much of them will be useless, and I'm very glad of that. And we warmly invite you in 14 days to the academic days of the National Clinical Center for Neuropsychomotor Rehabilitation in Bucharest, the Romanescu Center. Thank you very much.
We'll continue the last one.
We go further, and I'm glad to introduce the work of Professor Fausto Bonsignori, Italian Termalist Between Tradition and Innovation.
Cari colleghi e cari amici, sono Fausto Bonsignori, sono professore all'Università di Pisa e sono presidente dell'Associazione Italiana di Balneologia e di Medicina Termale. Mi dispiace non essere presente, ma purtroppo i miei impegni di lavoro mi trattengono in Italia. Spero che in futuro non mancheranno altre occasioni. Perché l'Italia si può definire terra di termalismo, terra delle terme? Per tanti motivi, soprattutto perché abbiamo tantissimi centri termali, molti centri termali. Abbiamo una tradizione storica molto importante e abbiamo anche una tradizione e un'attività attuale molto solida nel campo della ricerca medico-scientifica. E non solo, in Italia il termalismo non è solo un fenomeno legato alla salute, ma è anche un fenomeno legato alla società, alla sua evoluzione, al turismo, all'economia. È un fenomeno che comprende completamente le attività della nostra società. Dobbiamo cominciare a definire quelle che sono le nostre acque termali. Sappiamo che ci sono molte definizioni, ma la definizione che più correntemente utilizziamo in Italia è questa: le acque minerali termali sono acque naturali che grazie alle loro caratteristiche sono utilizzate a scopo terapeutico. Ripeto, a scopo terapeutico, questo è molto importante. In Italia ci sono delle leggi molto severe nel campo del termalismo. Le regioni controllano tramite le autorità sanitarie, controllano con grande attenzione i centri termali. Ogni centro termale, prima di aprire, quindi per essere autorizzato, deve rispettare numerosi criteri. Sappiamo bene che la classificazione delle acque termali è diversa nei vari paesi. In Italia noi teniamo in grande considerazione questi criteri che potete vedere nella slide: la temperatura, la concentrazione salina, il residuo fisso, la composizione chimica e la principale attività biologica che ha l'acqua. Ogni classificazione è sempre mista perché prendiamo in considerazione appunto tutti i criteri. Naturalmente, per motivi pratici, noi utilizziamo nella pratica medica quella che è la classificazione che si basa sulla composizione chimica, cioè nella presenza nell'acqua termale di particolari sostanze mineralizzatori. Possono essere in numero elevato o possono essere anche in bassa concentrazione, ma comunque capaci di determinare una attività biologica. Vedete in questa diapositiva, a parte la bella foto delle acque di Montecatini, che è un centro termale nella Toscana, in Italia ovviamente, le acque che utilizziamo in Italia e che sono presenti in Italia sono le acque solfuree, le acque solfate, le salsobromoiodiche, le ferruginoso-arseniacali, le bicarbonate, le carboniche, le oligominerali e le radioattive. È molto importante conoscere le caratteristiche delle acque termali e soprattutto quella che è l'azione biologica, l'azione farmacologica. Questo perché sappiamo bene e sapete benissimo che le acque sono diverse e la loro diversità porta anche a delle indicazioni diverse per i vari tipi di patologia. Quindi qui vedete in questa e nelle prossime diapositive appunto vedete quali sono le acque più utilizzate in Italia, qual è la loro caratteristica principale e qual è invece la parte dell'azione biologica. Il medico termale deve conoscere molto bene e deve sapere ben identificare quali sono le qualità delle acque e le loro differenze, perché in questo modo può essere sicuro di fare una prescrizione corretta e di andare veramente ad essere efficace sulla patologia. Diapositiva che riguarda appunto le caratteristiche delle acque termali, le ultime tre, la carbonica, l'oligominerale e la radioattiva. Quindi noi disponiamo di questa quantità e qualità di acque molto importante. La medicina termale non è soltanto acqua, la medicina termale utilizza anche altri mezzi che provengono dall'ambiente termale. E quali sono questi mezzi? A parte l'acqua che si utilizza per balneoterapia e per la terapia idropinica, che in inglese appunto si definisce drinking therapy, il vapore, che può essere utilizzato nelle inalazioni termali, il gas contenuto nelle acque termali, che può essere utilizzato per esempio nelle insufflazioni endotimpaniche, i fanghi, la fangoterapia, il microclima nelle grotte e il clima più in generale. Quindi ricordiamoci che la medicina termale non è solo acqua, ma è anche la possibilità di utilizzare in maniera anche combinata altri mezzi curativi provenienti dall'ambiente termale. Questa è una classificazione che utilizziamo in Italia. Vedete la parola crenotherapy o crenoterapia, che in Italia è sinonimo di medicina termale. Creno o crenè in greco significa sorgente. Noi in Italia, da un punto di vista classico, dividiamo la terapia termale o crenoterapia in interna ed esterna. Interna quando il mezzo curativo termale viene a contatto dell'interno del nostro corpo, oppure in cavità aperte all'esterno. Penso alle vie respiratorie, penso il sistema genitale femminile, mentre la crenoterapia esterna è quando il mezzo termale viene a contatto con la superficie del corpo, quindi balneoterapia e fangoterapia. Naturalmente esiste anche la terapia microclimatica, le grotte e l'importante capitolo della talassoterapia. Alcune foto che appunto mettono in evidenza i metodi, si va dalla terapia idropinica all'inalazione, all'insufflazione endotimpanica, alla terapia nelle grotte, microclimatica e alla fangoterapia. Questa slide invece rappresenta le principali attività che riguardano la balneoterapia, che si va dal percorso acquatico alla balneoterapia in vasca, alla balneoterapia localizzata o la balneoterapia in piscina collettiva. Dove agisce la medicina termale? La medicina termale agisce in tutti i campi della medicina, quindi in ogni atto medico. L'atto medico consiste nel fare prevenzione, nel curare e nel fare riabilitazione. Bene, la medicina termale agisce in tutti e tre i campi. Agisce come medicina preventiva, ovviamente secondaria e terziaria, agisce nella cura complementare e sequenziale e agisce nella riabilitazione. Tutto questo deve essere supportato dall'evidenza medica e evidentemente anche dalla validazione scientifica. Quindi la ricerca in questo caso deve essere sempre costantemente presente e se possibile sviluppata. Quando si parla di medicina termale non dobbiamo pensare che, come succede in alcuni paesi, anche in Europa, che la medicina termale sia considerata una medicina alternativa. Questo non è corretto. La medicina termale è una vera medicina che può essere complementare alla medicina tradizionale, ma anche sequenziale. Cosa vuol dire? Vuol dire che, specialmente in alcune patologie croniche, quando c'è la fase acuta è la fase del farmaco, quando c'è la fase non acuta è la fase della medicina termale. Tutti voi conoscete le principali indicazioni della medicina termale, lo vedete in questa slide, le conoscete benissimo, non le sto a ripetere, vanno dalle patologie reumatiche croniche alle patologie cutanee, alle patologie delle alte e basse vie respiratorie, alle patologie del sistema linfatico venoso, alle patologie gastrointestinali e biliari e infine all'importantissimo aspetto della riabilitazione termale. Ma guardiamo quelle che sono le nuove indicazioni. Le nuove indicazioni perché il futuro è oggi, non è domani, il futuro è oggi. Le nuove indicazioni sono quelle legate alle patologie complesse multifattoriali, per esempio l'obesità e la sindrome metabolica, la medicina estetica e la medicina antietà, tutto quello che abbiamo fatto nell'immediato post-Covid e stiamo ancora facendo nel long Covid, la medicina dello sport e la medicina. Qual è la situazione italiana? La situazione italiana è questa. Le strutture termali sono considerate delle vere e proprie strutture sanitarie. Il Ministero della Salute riconosce le strutture termali e riconosce la validità delle cure termali per alcune patologie. Quindi ogni cittadino italiano può usufruire gratuitamente di un ciclo di cure termale ogni anno. Naturalmente deve essere affetto di qualche patologia. In Italia, come vi dicevo, ci sono tantissimi centri termali. Probabilmente in Italia ci sono più centri termali rispetto agli altri paesi. Cioè, cosa voglio dire? Voglio dire che il numero delle imprese termali in Italia non ha uguali in altri paesi. La Federazione delle imprese termali, che si chiama Federterme, ha fatto uno studio e ha individuato ben 378 centri termali riconosciuti ed autorizzati come centri sanitari in Italia. Ma questo non è completo, perché a questi 378 centri termali vanno aggiunti altri che non sono affiliati all'associazione Federterme. Quindi si calcola che i centri termali sanitari in Italia siano circa 400. Ben 180 comuni italiani sono caratterizzati dalla presenza di strutture termali. Pensate che lavorano nelle terme 17.000 lavoratori, compresi medici e personale sanitario. Ogni anno sono frequentate da 2,8 milioni di pazienti e di questi ben il 12% proviene dall'estero. Il sistema termale italiano è anche un sistema economico perché ogni anno produce circa 760 milioni di euro di fatturato. A parte la struttura termale classica, in Italia abbiamo anche centri talassoterapici che ovviamente sfruttano l'acqua di mare come l'acqua minerale, come acqua termale, non solo, utilizzano anche la sabbia, le alghe e i limi, quindi i fanghi termali, e ovviamente la funzione benefica del clima. Nella prima diapositiva potete vedere i centri talassoterapici italiani storici e questi invece sono i centri talassoterapici italiani più recenti. Come vedete sono diffusi su tutte le coste dei nostri mari. In Italia esistono anche delle associazioni che si occupano di termalismo, in particolare Federterme è l'associazione delle compagnie termali, l'associazione legata a Federindustria. Poi c'è la FORST, che invece è la Fondazione per la Ricerca Scientifica Termale. Abbiamo anche un'altra associazione che si chiama ANCOT e che è l'Associazione dei Comuni Termali. Infine abbiamo la AMITF, che è l'Associazione Medico-Scientifica Italiana di Balneologia e di Medicina Termale, che ha una lunghissima storia e che nasce addirittura nel 1888. L'associazione di cui io mi onoro di essere presidente. Naturalmente non esiste soltanto una componente legata alle compagnie e alle strutture. In Italia c'è una forte tradizione universitaria per lo studio e l'insegnamento della medicina termale. Ci sono le scuole di specializzazione, in modo particolare una nella capitale a Roma, e ci sono in tutta Italia molte università che hanno organizzato dei master post laurea di 1 o 2 anni. La parte scientifica, come vi ho detto, ha una grande importanza. L'associazione che io presiedo, MTF, pubblica una rivista medico-scientifica che appunto si chiama La Nuova Clinica Termale, che raccoglie quelle che sono tutte le novità, gli studi e la rassegna della ricerca scientifica italiana nel campo del termalismo. Vi ringrazio per l'attenzione, ringrazio nuovamente tutti voi amici rumeni e gli ospiti internazionali. Vi lascio con questa splendida foto delle terme di Montecatini, sono terme che sono nel centro Italia, in Toscana. Un caro saluto a tutti e spero a presto.
Hello, Professor Gimigliano. Thank you for being with us. Do you hear us?
Hello, I can hear you well.
We are all ears to listen to your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Just a minute.
Okay.
No, okay.
Okay. Thank you very much again for the invitation. And it's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry I couldn't come in person, but I'm very happy to be live in streaming. So this year marked a really important year for rehabilitation, as the WHO for the first time adopted a resolution on rehabilitation. The name of the resolution is Strengthening Rehabilitation in the Health Systems. This really would help in improving and implementing rehabilitation worldwide. Today, I'd like to present the text of the resolution, which is, I would like to say, very, very beautiful. And there are some premises, like it's well known now that there is an increasing need for rehabilitation due to the epidemiological shift from communicable to non-communicable disease, and also to the global demographic shift towards rapid population aging. Oh, sorry. And this is also, this has been demonstrated in a paper published on online first on December 2020, where it has been calculated that 1 in 3 people today are estimated to be living with a health condition that benefits from rehabilitation. That would mean 2.4 billion people. This is a huge number. This gets along also with the COVID-19 situation, because COVID-19 somehow increased the number of people that would need rehabilitation, and to the lengthening of lifespan. As we know that with the lengthening of lifespan, there is an increase in chronic degenerative disease. And we know that people over 80 years old have 5.4 concomitant diseases, which usually is associated with a frailty syndrome. So with people that would really benefit from rehabilitation. One of the most important campaign in this year by WHO is the Healthy Aging campaign, as it has been calculated that in 2050, more than 1 in 5 people will be over 60 years old, and the 80% of the people of these older people will be living in low and middle income countries. So they are trying to improve the health condition of all older people and improve the prevention, above all, targeting low and middle income countries. Other premises of the resolution are that despite of the large need for rehabilitation, the rehabilitation needs are actually largely unmet. And the current level of rehabilitation-related workforce is insufficient, both in number and in quality, to serve the needs of the population. So they stress the importance of education and training of all health professionals that are included in what we call the rehabilitation team. This is a picture of a graph of with data of a few years ago, where you can see that the only health rehabilitation practitioners that are quite well represented worldwide are the physical therapists. We as PRM physicians are the blue ones, so we exist in Europe, generally in all high-income countries. There are some in the Western Pacific region and in the region of the Americas, but we are practically non-existing in Africa, Eastern Mediterranean region, Southeast Asia. Not to speak about speech and language therapists that are not even counted. Consider that the training for speech and language therapist is not present in every country, as well as occupational therapists and prosthetists and orthotists. That's why a few years ago, and HiSpiran collaborated with the WHO on this, prepared a rehabilitation competency framework. That is a framework useful to develop a training curriculum for any health practitioner in the field of rehabilitation. Other premises are the recognition that rehabilitation requires more attention by policymakers. And it comes sounds dear that it's the first time that the WHO even gave enough attention to rehabilitation, and that there is a deeply concerned that most countries, especially developing countries, are not sufficiently equipped to respond to the sudden increase in rehabilitation needs. Another problem is that rehabilitation is usually the most commonly disrupted service. We know this from COVID-19 again. We know that the majority of our inwards settings and also outdoors settings were actually shut down because of COVID-19. And so our patients actually worsen their conditions because they have no service, no rehabilitation services available. There is also a group inside the WHO, which is, and inside the ISPRM, there is a group that is working with this group in the WHO that is working to improve the guidelines and the minimum technical standards and recommendation for rehabilitation in emergencies, both in natural catastrophes and war disasters. And the DRC, which is the Disability and Rehabilitation Committee of the ISPRM, is actually very active within this group. And another important premise is the emphasization that rehabilitation services are key to the achievement of Sustainable Developmental Goal number 3, that is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. So this is, a goal for 2030, for the 2030 agenda. And the WHO therefore prepared also a guide for action to include rehabilitation in the health systems. This has been, for example, experimented by some ISPRM representatives in some African countries. And also the WHO prepared a sort of package of interventions for rehabilitation, this time in collaboration with Cochrane Rehabilitation, in which 20 health conditions have been selected, and the minimal standards for the rehabilitation of these health conditions has been described and decided and voted by quite a number of stakeholders coming from different countries. Another premise is to reaffirm that rehabilitation services contribute to the enjoyment of human rights. This is very important because the right to the enjoyment is the right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, including sexual and reproductive health, the right to work, the right to education, and others. And this is in line and consistent with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We know that rehabilitation, in fact, has been defined by the WHO as a set of interventions designed to optimize functioning and reduce disability in individuals with health conditions in interaction with their environment. And we know that according to our health condition and the environment where we live, we can go from the full integrity of our body functions and structures and activities and participation to a complete impairment in body function and structures and limitations in activities and restrictions in participation. Other premises are the Declaration of Astana, that rehabilitation is an essential element of the universal health coverage and an essential health service for primary health care, and other resolutions that has been adopted in the past years that are somehow related to rehabilitation. And also the recalling that of the importance of putting rehabilitation inside the universal health coverage. Also noting that persons in marginalized or vulnerable situations often lack of access to affordable, quality and appropriate rehabilitation services and assistive technology. That instead all people should have access to that. This is the Declaration of Astana, in which the rehabilitative strategy has been, affirmed as important for the reaching of health for the first time. This is the declaration adopted on December 2012 by the General Assembly of the WHO, in which it stressed the fact that rehabilitation is part of the universal health coverage and should be incorporated in the package of essential services, as long as prevention, promotion, treatment, and palliation, which are the other 4 health strategies. This is the more recent Declaration of Astana, in which the concept of universal health coverage is stressed once again. Another important premises of the declaration is that the International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health should provide standard language and conceptual framework for the measurement of health, functioning and disability. And it's reaffirmed the definition of rehabilitation based on the ICF, as we all know it. This is the ICF, but you well know it, and I've seen that there is a presentation after me, that it's important for what is important for rehabilitation, but what's important for health is actually the recognition that functioning is an important health indicator, alongside with mortality and morbidity. And it's because it really gives the information related to how the individual with the health conditions lives in his environment. Another premises is that the benefits of improving the access to affordable assistive technology include also would bring improved health outcomes, and also it has been stressed, and I think that this is very important, that rehabilitation should be human-centered, goal-oriented, and follow an holistic approach, guiding coordinated cross-governmental mechanisms that integrate measures linked to public health, education, employment, social services, and community development, and to work in collaboration with civil society organizations, representative organizations, and other relevant stakeholders. As you might know, in Europe, it has been a lot stressed, the individual rehabilitation project as the one that we usually use in Italy, in which the patient is at the center of all the rehabilitation process. Other premises are the recognition of the provision of timely care for in rehabilitation. So the fact that rehabilitation should be guaranteed along the continuum of care. The other important concern is the lack of awareness among many healthcare providers of the relevance of rehabilitation. And so they appreciate the efforts made by member states, the WHO Secretariat, and international partners to strengthen rehabilitation in the health systems, so to advocate for rehabilitation in the health system. And one of the most important initiatives that has been done is the WHO initiative Rehabilitation 2030, a call for action. As you might recall, in 2017, there has been this huge meeting with over 200 rehabilitation experts from 46 countries called Rehabilitation 2030 to draw the attention to the increasing need of rehabilitation, to highlight the role of rehabilitation in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and to call for coordinated and concerted global action towards strengthening rehabilitation in the health systems. This all brought to the resolution adopted in May. To come to the operational part of the resolution urges member states to raise awareness and build national commitment for rehabilitation, including for assistive technology, and strengthen planning for rehabilitation, including its integration with national health plans. To incorporate appropriate ways to strengthen financing mechanisms for rehabilitation services, to expand rehabilitation to all levels of health, from primary to tertiary care, and to ensure the integrated and coordinated provision of high quality, affordable, accessible, gender-sensitive, appropriate, and evidence-based interventions for rehabilitation along the continuum of care. Moreover, it urges member states to develop strong multidisciplinary rehabilitation skills suitable to the country context, to enhance health information systems based on the ICF, to promote high-quality rehabilitation research, to ensure timely integration of rehabilitation in emergency, and to develop available, affordable, and usable assistive technology and support for implementation, research, and innovation. It also invites international organizations, so this is, for example, an invitation for ISPRM, to strengthen the advocacy for rehabilitation, and in particular to support the World Rehabilitation Alliance, which is a multi-stakeholder initiative to advocate for health system strengthening for rehabilitation, and to harness and invest in research and innovation in relation to rehabilitation. This is the World Rehabilitation Alliance. The World Rehabilitation Alliance is a network of stakeholders whose mission is to support Rehabilitation 2030. We are very lucky because there are 4 work streams within the Alliance, and the workforce work stream is co-chaired by a PRM physician, Professor Abderrajak from Morocco. The research work stream is co-chaired by Professor Walter Frontera, that we all know. And the emergencies work stream is also co-chaired by a PRM physician, who is Professor Colleen O'Connell from Canada. Only the primary care is not chaired by any PRM physician, but of course we have PRM representatives for ISPRM inside the work streams, and the official representative is Professor Lucene Lalugo from Colombia, which has a huge expertise in primary care. Moreover, in the end, the resolution requests to the Director General to develop with input from member states and in collaboration with relevant international organizations, so also with ISPRM, to publish before the end of 2026 a WHO baseline report with information on the capacity of member states to respond to existing and foreseeable rehabilitation needs, to develop feasible global health system in rehabilitation targets and indicators of effective coverage of rehabilitation services for 2030, and to develop and continuously support implementation of technical guidance and resources to provide support to member states in their national efforts to implement the actions of the Rehabilitation 2030. Moreover, the request to ensure that there are appropriate resources at the WHO to support member states to systematically integrate rehabilitation and assistive technology into their emergency, and to report on progress in the implementation in 2026, 2028, and finally in 2030. Soon after, in July, there was another huge event, which was the third global rehabilitation meeting at the WHO headquarters, where it was discussed the resolution and how it can be implemented. There were presented new WHO tools that you can all find on the WHO website, and you can use in collaboration with the WHO to strengthen rehabilitation in your own country. To identify strategic opportunities to be harnessed in accelerating the Rehabilitation 2030 call for action, and of course to launch the World Rehabilitation Alliance. So, we need the effort of all peer and physicians to make sure that the main aims of the resolution will be adopted in each of our country. And I would like to thank you again for the invitation, and I invite you to the next HiSphere conference that will be held in Sydney from June 1st to June 6th in 2024. Thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Professor Gimigliano. As usual, an excellent presentation. I have a short question. Are you predominantly optimistic or predominantly cautious regarding the contribution of the artificial intelligence in robotic devices to assist people with disabilities?
I'm both. I mean, I'm optimistic, but with cautious. I'm actually also, I mean, I'm a little bit scared, even though I think that it can be an important tool that we can use. I think we really need to explore it much more to make sure that we are able to use it well, also at the educational level. We have to think that we need to change our training programs to include artificial intelligence, because we cannot avoid the future to come. So, I mean, even if I'm scared, I know that we will have to embrace it.
Thank you very much. Hopefully not to become the social apprentice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. I will invite now our friend Kitso from Nigeria, if he's online and wants to make the presentation online, or I can put the pre-recorded version of his presentation. Dear Kitso, you are with us. If not an answer, I will start the presentation.
Online. Good day, dear participants and distinguished international guests. I am Ngag Bukutso from the Jose Centino International Center for Medical Geology Research, Natural State University, Kefi in Nigeria. I am joined by Suleiman Mohammed Mustafa of the Raw Materials Research and Development Council, Abuja, also in Nigeria. We shall be making a presentation on computer applications in medical geology, example of balneocheck. Balneological resources, which include water, rocks, minerals, and aerosols, are found in virtually all the continents of the earth. And they are useful in balneotherapy. With the advent of medical hydrogeology and recent advances in software engineering, the need to inculcate computer software application in generating and analyzing medical hydrogeological data makes it compelling on modern-day interdisciplinary research to establish a link between geologic materials, their analysis, and their applications. This paper, therefore, presents a brief review of AquaMed software designed for balneological evaluation of mineral medicinal waters, as demonstrated with thermomineral waters of West Africa. The software uses a Microsoft Server SQL database to exchange data between the client system and the server. This evaluation software compares the physical chemical properties, that is pH, mineralization, dominating mega ions, and pharmacodynamic elements of mineral/medicinal waters to standards, and then generate reports based on this property. The report covers medical benefits, disease applicable to, as well as contraindication of the medicinal water type. The AquaMed version 1.1 was developed using Microsoft Visual Studio Net platform. AquaMed version 1.1 is a good analytical tool in evaluating the biological quality of minerals/medicinal waters useful for balneotherapy. In a brief introduction, software development process, also known as the software development lifecycle, SDLC, is a structure imposed on the development of a software project. There are several models for such processes, each describing approaches to a variety of tasks or activities that take place during the process. Some literature consider a lifecycle model a more general term, and a software development process a more specific term. The ISO/IEC 12207 is an international standard for software lifecycle processes. It aims to be the standard that defines all the tasks required for developing and maintaining software. UML, Unified Modeling Language, is a standard notation for the modeling of real-world objects as a first step in developing an object-oriented design methodology. UML is suitable
Sorry for the interruption. We have a small delay in presentation, so I'll go to the next presentation. Mr. Marcus Colpin from USA.
Hello to all my colleagues in the Romanian Association of Balneology. This is Dr. Copland. I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. I wish you all the success on this great Congress, and thank you for including me in the agenda. It's a shame I could not be there to join with you in person, but I look forward to doing that in the future. So today I'll be presenting to you virtually, and I have a presentation where I'm going to be reviewing integrative physical and rehabilitation medicine, balneology, and 21st century health resort medicine. So looking at the concept of the health resort medicine in a post-COVID era. So again, my name, Dr. Marcus Copland. I'm the Director of Medical Hydrothermal Medicine at the Balneology Association of North America. And my email is drmarcuscopland@gmail.com. I'm a naturopathic physician by trade and by training, and that means primarily I'm a clinician. And that's the way I come to this material that we're reviewing this weekend at the Congress, is through a clinical lens. And so my specialty is, as a naturopathic physician, I'm a primary care doctor with specialty training in integrative assessment and therapeutics. So my therapeutic compendium will include pharmaceuticals, nutrition, natural medicines like nutrient concentrates and herbal medicines, homeopathics, manual therapies like chiropractic or osteopathic manipulations, therapeutic injections such as neural therapy, prolotherapy, biopuncture, acupuncture, physiotherapy, of course, hydrotherapy and balneotherapy, which is why we're all here this weekend, and lifestyle education around all this. So this is what I would consider the field of integrative medicine, the assessments and treatments that I list here. Now, when we talk about integrative PMR or PRM, depending on which country you're in, we were looking at a field that I believe there's a lot of crossover between integrative medicine and PRM in terms of the desired outcomes and the context that we look at patients within. So as you see here, there are elements of each distinct field, PRM and integrative medicine, that have their own specialty areas that don't overlap. But I do believe the area of overlap actually is quite significant. Things like physiatry, physiotherapy, osteopathic treatment, of course, hydrotherapy, balneotherapy, all the treatments that I listed. But really what we're looking at is more the goal. I think the goal of PRM and integrative medicine really shares a lot of overlap, and that is the restoration of function to diseased or disordered systems. So what we're talking about is the neurological system. We're talking about the circulatory system, or the trophic, or the organ system itself, the inherent function of the organ. We want to assess where dysfunction occurs and use treatments or therapies to reestablish optimal function in those systems. Integrative PMR or PRM, I think it has a lot of crossover with what we would call health resort medicine. So the field of health resort medicine really is encompasses balneology and all the associated therapies and techniques that would be found at a health resort where balneology or balneotherapy can be administered. So it's the definition is as medicine originating in and derived from health resorts, diagnostic treatments, and it's used for health promotion and prevention, as well as therapy and rehabilitation, which we're going to explore that in a little bit here. Of course, it's the use of balneotherapy, the use of plain water hydrotherapy, climatotherapy, physical modalities, diet, nutrition, exercise, massage therapy, psychotherapy, health education, mind-body therapy, complementary and alternative, and other environmental factors. Really quite a broad spectrum, and I think clinically that's a good thing. Sometimes scientifically that can help, that can make it a little bit difficult to distill. But I think that we are up to that task by creating kind of algorithms of care and understanding kind of the basis for how treatments are delivered at a health resort. So the function of the health resort, there's three primary that were listed previously: prevention, therapy, and rehabilitation. So prevention being the maintenance of a physiologic state of well-being and resilience. Therapy uses combination of health resort medicine to intervene and heal illness directly, where rehabilitation is the recovery from illness or injury and the return to a functionally robust state of health. So as a 21st century vision of health resort medicine, we see it as part of a continuum of longitudinal medical care, a team care approach that's for planned and periodic focused courses of intensive treatment regimens. That's what we really have to our benefit with the health resort medicine, is this idea of a circumscribed period of treatment where we can layer treatment programs on top of each other. The treatment courses are consistent with the long-term goals of the patient and the treatment plan of the entire collaborative care team, everyone, including the health resort physician all the way to the home general practitioner, and it's inclusive of specialists and therapists that are involved in the plan along the way. Now, focusing on rehabilitation is what I really want to do today, because I think in a kind of post-COVID pandemic world, it's valuable for us to reassess this position in how we utilize at the health resort, and also kind of how we in the field of integrative medicine and PMR and how we come together and think about rehabilitation in this context. So the health resort medicine as a stage for rehabilitation strategies, as Massiero and Maccarone report, in health resort medicine, they may include therapeutic massage, water massage, physical modalities, numerous forms of exercise such as water exercise, breathing, balance, and muscle strengthening exercises, health education, psychological interventions, and treatments complementary to balneotherapy, which we've covered this concept. But specifically in rehabilitation, this is important because we use all these things to target the areas of assessed weakness due to an illness or an injury and re-strengthen those systems. And this brings us to the idea of convalescence. Convalescence is the gradual recovery of health and strength after the resolution of an illness, after the acute phase of an illness has passed. Now, it understands in the term convalescence, we understand that recovery from illness is more than just the absence of the symptoms. It's actually a return to a robust state of health and function. And that's at the neurological level, the circulatory level, and the trophic or inherent organ function. And it requires time to rebuild that optimal function. So convalescence in its kind of purest sense is attained through rest and basic hygiene measures, and just gives the body time and space to regain that functional reserve and heal. But rehabilitation, as opposed to convalescence, or in addition to convalescence, rehabilitation methods can be applied virtually to any post-acute or even chronic pathology, with the aim of speeding the return to a post-convalescent state. So we can kind of take that process of convalescence and enhance it through the concepts and practice of rehabilitation medicine. So some concepts that I'd like to really promote within the context of health resort medicine that I think help understand kind of clinically how we can start to think of and program treatments for patients, and also just kind of concepts that I think would be beneficial for us as a field to explore in more detail. The first one I want to go through is the concept of time. The period of focused treatment. That's the time that someone is at a health resort, be that a long weekend, 1 week, 3 weeks. That is a focused period of time where their goal is to be taking treatments, to be in a rhythm of rehabilitation and health, and it's separate from their day-to-day life. They're usually not coming to work and coming to the resort for one treatment and going back to work and coming 2 days later. It's a focused period of intervention. And in that focus period, we have the effect of amplification. So amplification is the combined biophysical effect of multiple treatment modalities that are being longitudinally applied. So just like two sine waves, when they're met, the peak of the waves will actually double the amplitude of that wave. This is kind of a concept of thinking about how the treatments operate. We're not, it's not the whole of the treatment is greater than the sum of the parts, and the different modalities are creating an amplified overall physical effect on the patient during the course of their treatment. Conditioning, of course, is the trained physiologic response to the repeated and amplified courses of treatment. So conditioning is what happens to the patient as they're undergoing the process of health resort medicine treatments during their circumscribed time of treatment. All the treatments that we work with pretty much have what I would call a direct effect, where you have a primary biophysical effect of the therapy. And they also have what we call a reactive effect, which is the physiologic response to the direct effect of the treatment. And understanding these two things and how they may play out can help with treatment timing and selection of complementary therapies to create that amplification of the overall course of treatment. Of course, hormesis is a topic that we've been talking about more and more over the years in our field. Then it's defined as a subtoxic dose of stress that stimulates a biologic response and improved physiologic function. And I would argue that most of the therapies that we have on hand at a health resort medicine are some form of hormesis, and the hormesis creates the reactive effect to the direct effect of the treatment, and that's what leads to the conditioned response, that the amplification of all these treatments over a long period of time, or I should say a circumscribed period of time, that in totality is what creates the effect of the health resort stay. And I think that's what we can look at as a process of medicinal intervention. So in last year, in 2022, the International Society of Medical Hydrology and Climatology stated the following, and I think it's really worth considering as we think about our field moving forward. The explosion of chronic diseases urgently poses to contemporary medicine the issue of reinforcing primary and secondary prevention. Hospitals of the near future will be primarily focused on acute patients, while a well-organized network of not hospitalized medical health care facilities will guarantee the necessary integrated approach to the patient, from prevention to rehabilitation. Balneology provides the benefit of integrated health, maintenance, therapy, and recovery. So it's a vision for the space of the health resort in the 21st century as the kind of paradigm and the landscape of medicine is shifting. How can we, as a field of medicine, step in to fill this very necessary gap that is occurring? And that's what I want to talk a little bit about in the post-COVID era that we find ourselves in, and the concept of rehabilitation specifically. I'm sure at this point we're all quite familiar with what long COVID or post-COVID syndrome looks like, the series of symptomologies, the timing and all this. I'll leave it up on the slide just so that you can review it, but I don't think we need to review it in depth. However, I think more interesting from our point of view are the possible etiologic factors of the symptoms of long COVID. We have sequelae of organ damage, persistence of chronic inflammation post-virally, an immune response or autoantibody generation due to the virus response, rare or persistence of the virus actually remaining in the body. We also have the kind of non-specific effects of hospitalization or the sequelae of critical illness or post-intensive care syndrome. These are the effects of actually going through the treatment that were life-saving in most people's cases for this viral illness. So there's also the comorbidities of the medications used in that same category. Now, we're also seeing some interesting things with a deconditioned immune response, meaning we're seeing reactivation of old illnesses, a lot of Epstein-Barr viral reactivation after COVID infection. Of course, this is creating experience of PTSD in a lot of patients. It's disrupting the microbiome of their gut, which we know more and more is essential to longevity and optimum health. And then we have damaged neurobiological adaptation responses, dysautonomia, and the potential for things like the viral vagal infection theory that might be dysregulating health long-term and systemically. So health resort medicine and long COVID rehab here I've just pulled from a couple of sources that were looking at the effects of rehabilitation strategies and integrative rehabilitation strategies on long COVID. So for post-acute COVID, a tailored and multidisciplinary rehabilitative program involving aquatic exercises, respiratory and motor exercises, social integration training, and neuropsychologic sessions such as laser therapy or magnetotherapy, seems to have a better preventive effect, not only in the short term, but also over the next 6 months, avoiding the new onset of disabilities and the use of medicines and specialist advice than other rehabilitative programs. It's an argument for the health resort medicine model. This second quote is pulled from a study that used herbal medicine as part of the treatment for long COVID. And in this study, we, for the first time, demonstrate that adaptogens, a class of herbal medicines, can increase physical performance in long COVID and reduce the duration of fatigue and chronic pain. And finally, there is a significant positive influence on post-COVID complications, namely pulmonary functions and drill of correct daily regimen, including breathing. So the use of actually putting people through kind of a training program to rehabilitate their body's function has been shown to be of benefit. So we need to think of that as we talk about kind of expanding our field into the 21st century and filling the gaps of the emerging medical paradigm that we find ourselves facing. This is going to require investment. This is going to require restructuring of compensation and training of more physicians and more well-trained researchers as well. So David Cutler, he's out of the Department of Economics for the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. He estimated that the cost of long COVID ranges between $9,000 and $11,000 US per year per patient. And that's estimated over medical costs, reduced earning, and reduced quality of life. Now, there are 65 million long COVID patients worldwide estimated. So the question becomes, can we afford to treat 65 million million patients? And can we afford to, really grow our field in order to meet that demand and for the need for rehabilitation and in a robust way in which we have the tools to do. But the real question is, if we're talking about a cost of 9 to 11 US dollars per thousand US dollars per patient per year, can we really afford not to treat? And I think that that's really the question that we have to come away with today. And really, I hope that question can galvanize us into expanding our field, coordinating our efforts as researchers and scientists across the field, and bringing together the best that the science and the clinical side have to offer as we work to kind of really help our patients and help the world as we move forward. So thank you all again for allowing me to join, and I wish you all the success in the rest of this Congress.
Good morning at all. My presentation is the polyperform methylisopropyl ether as a surface tensiometer liquid for pelloids quality assessment. Thanks to the high presence of fluorine, the polyperform methylisopropyl ether has highest electronegativity, low surface tensions, low intermolecular forces, short strongest and high resistance to CF bond and high stability. These characteristics give to perfluoropolyether hydrophobic, lipophobic and self-repellent properties. The perfluoropolyether is widely used in cosmetic science and skin care, and recently was used in pharmaceutical technology. Perfluoropolyether was also used in thermalist field because a valid non-invasive tool for a rapid qualification protocol of pelloids for pellotherapy. Perfluoropolyether can be used together with didomethane and glycerol to determine the quality of a pelloid in relation to its containing water, organic compounds and mineralogical pattern using the contact angle method. The measurements of the only contact angles of perfluoropolyether lead us to the determination of the quality of a mud spring water system in relation to the maturation process. The measurements of the contact angles of perfluoropolyether, glycerol and didomethane led to determine the surface free energy of a pelloid and its dispersive and polar component. The contact angle method demonstrates the variation of pelloid's quality respect to the reference mud in relation to the containing organic compounds due to the maturation process. If the contact angles of perfluoropolyether fall out of the acceptability range represented by the dark gray area, the corresponding pelloid ready for cutaneous application are not comparable to the typical reference mud, and consequently maturation process could be not appropriate. Considering the specific component polar component values of reference mud, the two pelloids X and Y showed lower values in the specific component because their maturation steps appear not complete or altered. This demonstrates the link between the specific component and the variation of organic compounds occurred during the maturation process of pelloids. Bentonite is hydrophilic clay. The increase of water percentage in water-wet bentonite over time corresponds at high wettability with water drops, and consequently low contact angles of water measured on its surface. For example, increasing the water percentage until 33%, the contact angles of water on untreated bentonite are about 23.8 degrees. In the case of pelloids, the anomalous high values of perfluoropolyether contact angles appear linked at high presence of hydrophilic bentonite because the opposite behavior between polar water drops and unpolar perfluoropolyether drops. The chemical surface correlation analysis of 18 samples of pelloids was satisfactory, with a coefficient of 0.80. Based on this data, correlation analysis was performed between this specific component and perfluoropolyether contact angles. The results demonstrates the satisfactory correlation degree between contact angles of perfluoropolyethers and dispersive component of pelloids that confirmed their link. Low perfluoropolyether contact angles correspond to high level of dispersive component of pelloids. High values of perfluoropolyether contact angles correspond at an anomalous level of aluminum oxide in the clayey fraction of pelloid. This could due to possible addition of bentonite to natural pelloids to increase the maturation process. However, it was demonstrated that its performance over time is low. Low values of perfluoropolyether contact angles correspond at pelloids with natural pattern in clay, which high concentration lead to a better performance in the maturation process over time. The presence of high percentages of bentonite in pelloids showed by high values of perfluoropolyether contact angles is linked to a decrease of their maturation process performance over time in accord with their dispersive component results versus the reference matter. The proportional inversion trend between contact angles of perfluoropolyethers and dispersive component was confirmed by a first cycle monitoring of 80 pelloid samples collected from a generally thermal area. As the same, the proportional inversion trend between contact angles of perfluoropolyethers and dispersive component was also confirmed by a second cycle monitoring of another 80 pelloid samples from the same spas. In conclusion, the polyperfluoromethylisopropyl ether, called also perfluoropolyether, is widely used in cosmetic science and skincare. The perfluoropolyether is a hydrophobic, lipophobic, and self-repellent liquid test recently introduced in pharmaceutical technology to evaluate drug release and permeation process. The perfluoropolyether was applied for the first time in surface tensiometry applied to thermalism to evaluate the quality of pelloids and their maturation process step. The contact angle of perfluoropolyether is not influenced by surface roughness and friction forces generated at interface with pelloids. The perfluoropolyethers proved to be very sensitive in the detection of added bentonite in pelloids, and the contact angles of perfluoropolyether is closely linked at an increase of organic compounds produced during the biological maturation process of pelloids. In perspectives, surface tensiometry can be a non-invasive and rapid tool for determining the quality of a pelloid in relation to the typical spring water in which the maturation process is performed. Surface tensiometry could be an asset for evaluation of the quality of spring waters for balneotherapy uses in relation to their contact with the skin. I dedicate my presentation and my work in memory of Rodica Morario, a wonderful caregiver that operates in my house for 4 beautiful and deep soul years.
Consistent delay, but considering the coffee break of half an hour have been used in this purpose, because I'm acquainted that next door there are a lot of fellows of ours who already refreshed their powers.
15 minutes break.
Mai mult.
10 minutes.
Da, now I shall speak in Romanian. Doar 10 minute și se intră în sesiunea